Well, before I start, I want to just quickly gauge the room. When we're talking about business people, data science and developer people, and design and conversation design people, if I bracket it in these three groups, how many here are conversation design, UX design, content writers? All right, nice. That's probably a quarter or something. And then how many are data scientists, developers? Yeah, I'm going to disappoint you guys because I'm going to give you some real metrics here. But it's not going to be millions of data points and stuff. So, but feel free. Just so you know, for the conversation designers and stuff, there's going to be a few tidbits. It's not going to be the main, talk content. What I'm really interested here is talking to the business people, because I don't know. Does that mean that anyone who didn't raise their who here is really coming from the business side of things? Got there two people. Okay, well. This is mainly for you two guys. No, it's for everyone, but it's definitely geared also to making a business case out of these things, because it's great to have this fancy model, but if it's not driving any end value, or if we don't know what the end value is, then yeah, what are we doing? So, how we improved accuracy and coverage. Yeah, clustering 150,000 customer questions. So when I talk about intent clustering, I'm assuming most people here know what an intent is. I'm still going to explain it quickly before I start rattling off slides. An intent is a way to understand what customers are asking. So that's usually different phrasings of the same question, or what we think is the same question. Intent clustering is what happens if a human simply goes through chat logs and say, oh, this question and this question are basically the same thing. Let me put them together. But I'm going to show you that that was no longer sufficient for our project. So this was a typical project that I work on. This client had a customer service chatbot, which is, as most people know, the most common use case for conversational AI. So it had 140 dialogues, and each dialogue had one intent behind it, which I think puts us, it's definitely a mature chatbot at this point if you have more than 100 intents, in my view, but I'm interested to hear people disagree. I know that there's already enough chatbots out there that have 500 plus intents, which is great. Anyway, now you know, okay, this one had 140 to start. And it was getting 500,000 customers a year asking questions. Now, we got to these first 140, like I said, we had we manually reviewed chat logs coming in. We asked around in the business, hey, what do customers typically ask? Oh, that's typical. Okay, let's make an intent for that, et cetera, et cetera. And that worked okay, but we started to hit a ceiling where we could maybe find some new intent that, when we really dug deep, had maybe a 0.1%, so 1,000th of all customers asked that question or less. So it became, we really had to start digging deep and sort of getting lost in the woods there. So part of this was also to review, okay, what are we actually doing here with this bot? What is the business impact? And when we automate one chat, we save the business, in this case, something like $5. So with 500,000 people a year coming in, and 25% currently, back before we start this project, being automated. So one quarter being automated, of those 500,000 times $5 yields $25,000 a year, which is a nice number, right until you have to pay me, and you have to pay the vendor, and you have to pay all these people. So we needed more. Right, so I'm going to skip through this. So this is basically the challenge I was discussing, that we were sort of hitting the ceiling where we know there's long tail questions that are not being addressed. But we spend a lot of time finding them, and yeah, then we're basically a month has gone by, and maybe we've added a few more, and they are maybe in some cases addressing some customer needs, but it's all becoming slim pickings. And this is basically what I'm trying to explain here. So in the past, actually, I've been involved with some projects where data scientists built their own script to sort of do stuff like this. So maybe for some of the data scientists and other more tech-oriented people here, some data scientists try to work with n-grams. I actually have never built a script with n-grams, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to mention this, throw this out there. So some of you may have looked into using n-grams into clustering, which can work if you just want to get a very vague overview of, hey, I have 50,000 questions, which topic is prevalent? But as soon as you go into an intent, as soon as you go into a specific customer question, it's more than just finding 1, 2, 3 keywords that together build an intent. Because, for instance, if I as a customer say I want to return this gift card, then you have the keyword of return and you have the word gift card. And then you think, okay, well, anything that has those 2 keywords must be the same intent, until you realize that some customers are saying, oh, I bought this product with this key card. I've returned the product. And then it's only slightly different intent. But you know, the initial approaches that we used would just throw all of that together. And then we manually had to split that out. It's taking a long time. So this is when we turned to human first. This is our first time working with this platform. I'm going to show you, I've got one screenshot, and I'm going to talk to you a bit on exactly how it works. But this is what it does. It ingests real customer questions. So we use actually 150,000, hence the title. And it helps the human AI trainer, the human NLU engineer, whatever you want to call them, your colleague that creates these intents, helps to create them. And well, as I said, what I mean with this title, I really found out you need both. Data scientists are trying to get the human as most as possible out of the loop, and I understand why, and that's great. But at this point in time, I've not been involved in any project where you didn't need a big human element, whether it's data labeling, whether it's validating. So the projects that I see that work really well are when the human and the machine work well together, and not where you're trying to brute force your way around the problem, either through the machine or through cheap human labor. So before I actually start to explain how we use this, just want to share the results here with you. So we grew the amount of intents quite with a lot, almost doubling. True positive. So for those of you not known what that means, what that basically means is the percentage of incoming questions that was correctly identified and that we had a dialogue for. So of course you have your other correct identification if it's correctly identified as being out of scope. So which is still, the model means it's still working properly, but the customer is not helped. So true positive means the bot correctly understood the customer and gave a relevant answer. And that's really, in the end, what we're going for here, because otherwise we can't help customers if we don't understand them. So our coverage, in other words, the amount, of all incoming traffic, which percentage did we have intents for and dialogues for? We managed to improve that. And in the end, also the automation rate went up from around 25% to now around 28%. So that's some real impact then on the bottom line, because these 3 percentage points mean that we are saving the business roughly an additional $75,000 a year. Oh, cool. Well, I'm trying to check my time here. Guess I'm still good, right? Yeah, we're still good. Right, so here's basically some real data, and this is also when I created the talk. For most people, this will be very boring, but this is, you're really getting, as we say, you're getting a sneak peek into the kitchen. You're seeing how the sausage is made. Most people won't come on stage and say that they had a chatbot that they worked on that was only addressing 42% of incoming questions correctly. Unfortunately, that is the case, and this is not particularly good or bad. This is what we see all across the industry. So in other words, the 42 there that you see, that means 42% of incoming questions was handled as a true positive. And you also see a little bit of how that changed quarter on quarter. So this was without human first. This was us just doing labeling. And we realized, okay, we were able to go from 42 to 46. Well, that's nice. That's 4 percentage points. But it took us an entire quarter. And eventually, we want to end up somewhere near 80%. Now, as an industry, we don't really know where the real ceiling is yet. My personal hypothesis is that, like the Pareto principle, it's going to be somewhere around 80%. As soon as you go beyond 80%, it's going to be a huge long tail. It's going to be very hard to go even higher than that. That being said, we were not anywhere near 80%. By the way, the other colors here, you got your true negative, false positive, false negative. Be happy to explain more if people want to know exactly what it means, but basically all these three are not what you want. These three all need to be trending down, and you saw that one, the false positive, was not trending down either. So I'd like to make a wider point here. Obviously, building an NLU model that correctly identifies a customer question is not the whole deal. You also need to have well-designed dialogues that then actually help the customer. So I just wanted to make that point, not disrespecting the conversation designers out there. But the fact of the matter is that currently it's easier to track improvements in NLU quality versus improvements in design, right? Design is intangible or harder to make tangible. It can be done, and it's also good to try at least, but what's nice about this approach is that we can sort of track, okay, if we spend this much hours into making the model this much better, and that yields this much impact, and then we extrapolate from there. You can already do that with this side of the chatbot improvements. So, sharing a bit of the human first interface here, and I'd like to take you through what you're seeing here. In the bottom right, we're seeing clusters that human first proposed. So for instance, you see that number 7 there, and then next to that, that's what's the reason for a hold on my Wells Fargo account. I realize, by the way, there's some human first people in here that are probably cringing at how I'm going to explain their product. But afterwards, you can talk to them. They can explain this much better. But I'm just giving you how I interfaced with this. So anyway, human first has received all of this data. By the way, this is fake data. This is not the actual customer data I worked with. Still, though, it's similar to what I saw. You got, in the bottom right, human first proposing a cluster. So it's saying, I've got 7 sentences that all look quite a bit like, what's the reason for a hold on my Wells Fargo account? And then at the top, with the 2 check marks, that's sentences that the human has already okayed as to belonging to one cluster. So in this case, those in the top are about an application for a credit card. So I could look at this 2 ways, and this for me already shows the benefit of human first versus building your own script or doing this manually. And that is, if I'm building just a chatbot, just the first iteration, I want to just get a few big intents out there. I'm not going to go all the way in the weeds yet. I just want to get to production. So then I would say, any customer questions around credit cards, I'm just going to throw them all together in one big intent, and we'll just get a generic dialogue. And then maybe a month down the line or 2 months down the line, that's when I'm going to dig in. In this case, when I'm already working on this longer, then I'm thinking, okay, no, I want to go explicitly to credit card applications and make an intent specifically on helping out with that. So in that case, I would not add any of the 3 clusters in the bottom. Yeah, then none of them are about a card application, even though they're similar about similar topics. Another game changer for me is that on the left side, you see a prediction of how well the intent in the making, that's in the top right, again, that's that checklist, so that should grow to at least, 10, 20 sentences at least, in my experience. But it will, as you go, it will calculate the likelihood that actually matches to an existing intent already. So sometimes I was interfacing with this, and then I realized, oh wait, I've already created this intent in a slightly different way. And by it telling me right now, I'm saving so much time that otherwise I would have to validate my model a week later, and then realize, oh, these two are confused. Oh, why? I mistakenly made 2 intents that sound different but are basically the same. So that's a big time saver. Then, and I'm looking at them, so good, right? Yeah. Another game changer for me is that this project and similar projects are starting to work with intent hierarchies. And what that means is that you have top-level intents, and then within those intents you have other intents. And that is great. That's a great feature to have. It's just that then you start to get not just confusion between intents on the same level, but also one deep intent over here being confused with one over there, and it's starting to become very hard to validate and to figure out, okay, is it a problem within these specific intents or within the groupings that were made? And again, human first proactively saying this, I think what you're building now is close to this other intent or this group of intents, prevents a lot of those maintenance problems down the line. Okay, here comes a bit that's probably most interesting for conversation designers. The way we attacked this, we started by grouping these 150,000 questions into, main level, high level topics. So the one in the top left here, orders, that makes sense. This is again, a customer service chatbot. People want to know when their order will arrive, if they can return an order, et cetera, et cetera. So sure, we made that one. Then technical difficulties turned out to be a topic. Now, as a business, you might, if you were not using human first or something like this, you might make a topic around technical difficulties, or you might say, no, I've got my product line X, I've got my product line Y, so I'm going to make a topic for Y and a topic for X, and then within those I'll have something for problems, technical problems with that specific product. Makes a lot of sense if you're thinking, if you're business oriented, but it doesn't make sense for the customer and it doesn't make sense for the NLU. So this is much better because it's basically telling us, hey, customers are talking about all manner of different technical difficulties in the same way. And then finally, free stickers. This specific company had a promotional drive and gave out some free stickers. And somehow that was so distinct. So customers were asking, hey, can I get some more free stickers? It was so distinct that it didn't fit in with any other topic. Usually, as an AI trainer, if I'd even made an intent for this, I would have probably tried to slot it in with something about promotions or whatever. So again, it looks like these three things are not on the same plane, and they are not from, maybe if you try to logic your way through this, but the whole idea is to suspend human logic because we're trying to train computers. So once I had those high-level topics figured out, then that's when we dove in. And Human First learns from how you set these high-level topics to then make better suggestions on how to subdivide each topic. And this is something I think for conversation designers is going to be most interesting. And some of you might very well already be doing that. But what I, as an AI trainer, whenever I saw a statement, a vague statement such as, oh, I just bought something, dot, nothing else, then I would ignore it and move on to the next labeling, next utterance, and would just be like, well, we can't bother with just vague statements. I mean, who cares? Okay, you just bought something. Okay, I'm just gonna be fine with the chatbot responding, oh, I don't understand what you mean. Could you rephrase? But I realized that if you have certain of these statements that are appearing a lot, and obviously for a business, someone saying, I just bought something is not a very out there statement. It's just that we can't do anything yet with it. But it's a great opportunity for conversation design to come in and then say, oh, well, I hope that experience was good. If it's not, let me know. If you want to cancel, you could do that here. If you want to buy something else, here. Anyway, they can play around with this a lot, and a statement like this can actually be a starting point for a real good conversation, a real good experience. Whereas, for me at least, it was always considered a dead end. So maybe some of you out there are already doing this better than we are, but this was for me a real insight. And then we also saw stuff like the thing in the bottom. Again, this is something that you would easily skip over in the beginning of building a bot. Yeah, the product makes a squeaky sound, yeah. In this case, for this type of business, the fact that a product makes a squeaky sound doesn't indicate that it's broken necessarily. So, but now that through Human First, you see that there's actually enough traffic there. Again, it's something where the conversation designer can come in and show the persona of the bot, especially with this type of statement. Maybe going back more nerdy into the intent hierarchy part of things. So I don't know if any data scientists here worked with intent hierarchies already. This is one of the first projects that I've done with intent hierarchies. And what I've noticed myself, in the before section here, you see I've already got a bunch of third level intents in there. And then after human first, actually the need for some third level intents was lost, and I actually had to move a few up to the second level, whereas the second level itself grew so much. Now, again, this is very nerdy, but what this told me is that I was too keen on simply, since I have a third level, simply just to keep splitting out stuff, where at least in this case it's not needed. So this really depends, of course, on your use case and your audience. But again, this is something where I realized, oh, as a human, I'm giving this this tool, this intent hierarchy. I'm just going to go and use it, whereas it might not be necessary. So here we have the graph that we had before, but then amended to show what the impact was after human first. So that's the Q3 we're looking at here. So the fact that true positives went up by 12 points instead of 4 in 1 quarter, that's our big money maker. That's what we were looking for. And as an aside, it's just nice to see that the false positives, the red line, was also tapering off. Again, if it was just the other two tapering off, then you can always target specifically those false positives to try to bring those down in the next iteration. But the fact that this was already sort of taken care of, I mean, we still need to do better, but I like that about this as well. Let's see. Yeah. So basically, this is what I'm starting to round up here. So again, to summarize, we had more data than we knew what we could do with, but thanks to human first, we could ingest it, and actually, it took us only a week to really build this new intent hierarchy to cluster from 140 to a 260, and yeah, we saw some actual real improvement.